Welcome in to the Hot Read podcast live on Friday, April the 11th. I am your host, JT Ruhnke, writer and reporter here at the 440 Sports Podcast Network. You can follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you like to call it, at JT_Ruhnke. And joining me on a Hot Read Happy Hour Friday is none other from, I believe is that your mom's new house?
It is. We're out at the cat house. I've already had to yell at one of these crazy ass cats once because they're trying to chew on the extension cord that I have my setup plugged into. One of them might jump on the table in the middle of this podcast, but yeah, doing a little workout here today. So I'm mobile. I'm remote today.
Well, that is if you're listening to the podcast and not looking at us on YouTube, which, by the way, you should go over to the 440 Sports YouTube channel and subscribe to see our lovely faces. That is Stoney, Keeley, editor-in-chief of the M.L.Rose Network, one half of Football and Other F Words, and co-writer over at Stacking the Inbox. Other than these terroristic cats, Stoney, how is your day going?
Pretty good. I'm getting a lot of stuff done, and so I'm always feeling good when I'm productive. And I'm hearing word on the street is that there is some hot chicken in my future this evening. So I'm always stoked for that.
I love it. Cannot wait to get into today's show. Maybe a little bit of a shorter one, but nonetheless going to be talking about some of the biggest questions that the Titans still need to answer. Some of our biggest questions, I should say, that the Titans need to answer in the NFL draft upcoming. Thank you guys all for being here. Reminder, if you are watching over on Twitter or Facebook and want to join the conversation like Joe and Zach and Eddie are already, do us a favor and head on over to the 440 Sports YouTube channel where you can join them. Joe saying, thank you for saving me from Nico talk. Couldn't escape it on local radio. Just kidding. I lied to you. We're going to be doing an hour and a half of Nico Iamaleava talk today because that's apparently big news.
We have to talk about it.
I could not care less. Listen, the only reason I want to talk about Nico Iamaleava is the fact that I think he's going to be in a year way overrated in next year's QB class because I'm also on hashtag team he's mid. So that's all I have to say.
I'm with you.
Zach saying, in the wise words of Carly Rae Jepsen, it's Friday. I'm glad he was able to correct himself because that is Rebecca Black, two mid-2010s white women pop stars. Very easy to get them confused. And Eddie saying, good evening, lads. We'll talk about that Derek Carr news that just broke and so much more today.
Crazy.
But first, have to... Easton, you know what? I don't need this today. Okay, we rushed to get this ready because I have a dinner to go to tonight. I'm trying my best here today. But we are brought to you by M.L.Rose Craft Beer and Burgers, 7 locations around the greater Nashville area in Capitol View, Franklin, Gallatin, Melrose 8th Avenue, Mount Juliet, Sylvan Park, and a 8th location coming soon to Inglewood in East Nashville. Got to get out there, Stoney. You get some fried chicken, but I know me and you definitely have to hit up M.L.Rose sometime this weekend. And you were there earlier today, were you not?
I was about to say the only reason I'm getting hot chicken tonight is because I was already at M.L.Rose once today. So stopping by, getting my lunch on, it's a fantastic spot.
Yes, thank you to M.L.Rose for being our presenting sponsor, making this free to you every single week. Also, thank you to Sinkers Beverages for sponsoring the show. And a reminder that if you are looking for an event for the upcoming NFL draft, we do have our draft charity watch party, which we will be doing with Sinkers Beverages at their headquarters in Wedgwood, Houston, Thursday night and Saturday night. Thursday night, of course, being a watch party of the first round of the NFL draft, reacting with all of you guys, as well as on our live stream, breaking down the Titans' first overall pick, as well as the rest of the first round, catered by Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. All you can eat and drink. Tickets are available for that night in the links in our description and on the podcast page, as well as Saturday night's Q&A behind closed doors, off the record podcast, where they, once again, Shotgun Willie's will be catering all-you-can-eat food, along with a 5-flight bourbon tasting. Come talk Titans and support the Our Kids Charity Foundation, who do great work for children of Nashville. reminder, those tickets are on sale for Thursday and Saturday separately in the links below, or you can buy both tickets together for a little bit of a discount. That is Thursday and Saturday, and we hope to see you there. It's going to be so much fun. Cannot wait to interact with all of you, get our eat and our drink on, break down the rest of this class as well. Once the Titans' first round pick is over, we can kind of just hang out with all of you, talk ball, give our blunt reactions, because I know it's the draft streams are some of the most entertaining streams that we do every single year, and cannot wait to do them this year. So reminder, those links can be found in the description of today's show, as well as the podcast feed as well. Okay, Stoney, I think that is all
JT,
housekeeping out of the way, unless you already have one more thing.
I have one more thing, and we'll move on. This is all we have to talk about Nico, but I have to share this with the class here.
Okay.
This is from Tin Man Jones on Twitter. I watch Nico all year. It doesn't surprise me it's taking him forever to make an inevitably bad decision.
Yeah, well, there you go. I'm glad Vols fans their entire world is falling today. I could not care less about that. But what I do care about is the Titans NFL draft upcoming. And I do think that there still are some big questions to be answered, specifically with some of these guys that we've talked about the last couple of weeks, with new news emerging about their situations. We've talked a lot of wide receivers. We've talked a lot of edge rushers, but none more than the wide receiver, because I feel like we are starting to really hone in on the idea that it is either a trade back at 35, or if the Titans were to stick and pick, it ultimately feels like it's because one of those wide receivers falls to them there at 35. And I think the one that we continue to talk about, the difference between the character concerns of him versus the tape, is Luther Burden, which a friend of our show, Easton Freeze, and make funner of my my current setup. Thank you, Easton, for once again always getting me off track. But Luther Burden will meet with the Titans next week, officially on a 30 visit. Once again, just like they did with Isaiah Bond a week and a half ago or so, the Titans are once again doing a lot of due diligence on this player and players who have been noted to have character concerns. And I think we can talk about the Bond news in a second, but Luther Burden's character is nothing like off the field, like, criminal or anything like that. It's more so just him as the person. It kind of sometimes shows up on the tape. When you watch him, he just looks disinterested on some of the routes. Like, this is another guy who I think they are continuing to target here at 35. And so my question for them is, what would it take, at least, like, if you're in that room, Stoney, my question is, what would be the question you'd have to ask to check your box off on Luther Burden? Because we know the tape is the tape, and the tape is like a top 20 guy in this draft class at the wide receiver position. He may not be the number one he may not be the number one wide receiver in this class, but he's probably number one when it comes to what he can do with the ball in his hands. I mean, an absolute yards after the catch monster, is able to dice up defensive units that way once you get that ball in his hand. And he brings that wow factor down the field sometimes that you just can't get with some of these other wide receivers. But like that is worthy of him. But obviously there's a reason he continues to fall in this draft class, I guess. And so what for you, Stoney, would be the question that you would need answered to sign off on a guy like Luther Burden?
Well, first of all, if I played in that Missouri offense, I'd probably be pretty disinterested in it too. It was kind of hard.
Eddie brings up a good point. Like, I'm disinterested in that Missouri offense every time I had to watch it. Now, I get that, right? But like, as an NFL coach, do you think that maybe rubs you the wrong way? In a sense, don't know. Like we had that kind of similar situation with Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorton early on in this cycle, right? It's like, well, if they're gonna tell you that, like in an interview or something like that like that wasn't my job, like that's what we were supposed to do, and yet you still weren't doing it well in that system. Like, does that rub you the wrong way, or is that a valid excuse? I don't know where I stand on that one.
I'm good with it because I mean I've watched the tape and I've seen it, you know, and I kind of want to be direct and I want to ask him about those deficiencies, those plays where he does look like he's loafing a little bit, not very interested in blocking. Some of the route running when he was running route, I think he drifts a little bit when he knows the ball's not coming his way. I kind of want to hear him say it, you know, because those are things that I do think you can watch tape and you can see, you know, it's not to say that he doesn't play hard, he doesn't care or anything like that, because I do think there are flashes where this guy looks like he could be a monster. I mean, just the jump cuts, the wiggle with the ball in his hands. You said it. He's a yak guy. I think you can put him in the slot. I think draft analysts who talk about him as like exclusively a slot receiver are a little misguided because I think he can move all around the formation, play your Z role, whatever you need him to do. And so I kind of want to know that there's not going to be any bullshit between us. You know, I want to hear him say it like, yeah, you know, I was frustrated. I was disinterested. I wasn't getting the ball. And if you can confirm that it is just kind of like basic diva stuff, I'm cool with that, man. I want my wide receiver to want the ball. I'm okay with a little bit of that selfishness, if you will, that attitude, maybe a better term for it. I'm okay with that in my wide receiver. Like we talked about, as long as the supposed character concerns are not criminal, I think, you know, we can work with it. If this is a guy that's passionate about football, I think it'll show in those conversations. I kind of just want him to say it. I just want him to own up to it, because then, you know, there's a foundation of trust that you can build off of. And you know, like, hey, we can work with this and we can coach him through it. You'd also want to know, since apparently the mom is a problem, you would also want to know, is the mom coming with you when we draft you?
I think that, listen, if that's true, right? Like, I think that's very fair.
That's crazy.
However, yeah, I think the for me as well, it's that how passionate are you about
Yeah.
the game? And I think Zach brings up a great point. It does feel like it could be like a little bit of like a D-Hop situation as well.
Yeah.
Like, I like his question here where he says, can Cam Ward keep him invested? Which I think, sitting beside a guy like Cam Ward, I think that brings listen, I don't think they're bringing, if they want to bring Luther Burden in to be a leader, right? Like, I don't think that's what he is or
Sure.
what he will be. Like, I think you're not too concerned about that, because I do think there are some strong leaders in that offensive room already. I think Cam also brings in a dynamic that could work well there as well. I am more interested in the commitment level that a guy like Luther Burden would have to a
Sure.
young franchise trying to rebuild here in year one. And so I think that is where I think you see the slide, right? The disinterestedness, and maybe the lack of passion is potentially a big question. So that's something that they will have to find out with him. Coach Will's asking, the question could be, can Cam Ward hold him accountable? Like, I don't know if that's Cam's responsibility, you know? Like, I think that is a Luther Burden thing. But the talent is there, right? Like, now we might next week do like a little bit of a take purge type thing with just get things off our chest, and there may be a signs I'm connected. The one thing downside of a guy like Luther Burden is I get this shiver down my spine of a certain former first round pick wide receiver in the past 5 or 6 years that the Titans have made, that there's just a little similarity there in the types of games they play that send a shiver down my spine, which I may hold on to for the pre NFL draft take purge. However, like, I'm once again, I'm absolutely sold on a guy like Luther Burden at 35. Now, the other wide receiver that has some concerns, and I think is a bigger question, is Isaiah Bond, which we talked about Isaiah Bond and how much due diligence they were doing on him. Certainly would be a guy that could be, we talked about even before this news came out, that he could be Mike Borgonzi's Titans version of a Tyreek Hill, right? He's got that speed. He's got the ability to create that separation on the outside. Maybe not the most consistent wide receiver in his last year, dealt with some injuries as well. Certainly, it feels like when you're that fast and you're that type of guy, those things are becoming more and more common at this stage of where we
Sure.
are in the NFL span of receivers. However, I didn't think it was going to be this like close to a carbon copy of Tyreek Hill, because it comes out that former Texas wide receiver Isaiah Bond turned himself into Frisco, Texas police last night for a matter related to an outstanding warrant for sexual assault. Frisco PD told the insiders he posted bond and was subsequently released. It's a big issue. I feel like this could end up, there's a lot of parallels to be made to last year. Now it's a different criminal offense, but like another Texas player who got into some trouble right before the draft, who the Titans are looking to be very, very interested in.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting a lot, like, that's the one guy you can sell me on, that like they seem to be doing their due diligence on a guy like Isaiah Bond when other teams may just have him off their board entirely. And that's, even though it was majorly a Rand Carthon thing last year, right? Chad Brinker was around for that draft. And like, it is a Chad Brinker decision as well. Like, could we be seeing the Titans again look into a guy who may be off some other people's boards? Maybe they take him a little higher, maybe say in a trade back. Like, let's say they trade back from 35 to mid 40s or so, like early 50s, and take Isaiah Bond there. Like, do you think that is still a reach, or have we gotten to the point where we can trust at least Brinker and some of this staff that has kind of survived the post Rand Carthon era? Can we trust their ability to rely on their judge of character to say that this guy could potentially be the next Tyreek Hill for this team and bring that offensive weapon, even with the character concerns?
Yeah, I mean, based on the tape alone, I don't think that's a reach at all. I mean, I think Bond has some really good tape out there. He's one of those players that, to me, does that. He has like one thing that he does really well, and that one thing he does is like better than most of the people that also do that thing. Like, the separation ability, the speed is crazy. This is a guy that looks like he hits top speed from the first step he takes off the line of scrimmage. The further downfield he gets, the further he pulls away from defensive backs. He's also kind of a weapon on those gadgety kind of plays, a lot like what we see with Tyreek Hill in Miami. I think screens, stuff like that, he can navigate traffic, accelerate instantly, really good at turning the corner when running to the edge. This is a team that wants to add speed to the receiving core, and this is probably the speed guy in the draft class, because you're not going to get Travis Hunter unless you spend the first overall pick on him and you pass on Cam Ward, and we don't think that's going to happen at this point.
Which, by the way, real quick, I'm sure you saw the Titans are doing like if you guess the first pick correctly, you get four free tickets to the home opener. You're like entered into a giveaway for 4 free tickets to the home opener if you guess the first pick correct. Like, what is the strategy there? Is the strategy to go with Cam and just get your hat in the ring, or is it to pick a guy like Travis Hunter to like just say if
that's crazy.
In the one scenario, in the one multiverse scenario where we are totally stumped by this team and they do end up going like Travis Hunter or something, you'd probably be the only person. You probably win those tickets, right? Like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, what do the Titans?
You're probably not gonna win those tickets anyways. Might as well just like be the one guy who picks like Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter or like Will Campbell or something ridiculous like that, right?
Yeah. Maybe they know something that we don't. And they're like, we won't have to give away these tickets because everybody's going to vote Cam Ward, and then they're going to draft Travis Hunter, and it will be like, oh, well, sorry, nobody won. They're big
Exactly.
braining us.
But yeah, no, like top speed, you're probably not gonna. Matthew Golden is not going to be there at 35 or anywhere close to 35, and so like the next like top speed guy is his teammate Isaiah Bond, and I think I'm. It's not going to be the same um as a T'Vondre Sweat, because obviously T'Vondre Sweat plays a position that is nowhere near as necessary as like wide receiver. But like if the due diligence comes back, like I don't think there's a world where taking Isaiah Bond, you know, now 35,
Pretty
I, I
rich.
I think that is still rich, but like you're telling me in a trade back scenario, you use that mid 40, early 50 pick on a guy like Isaiah Bond, and you still have a pick in the top 100. I think you can sell me on that.
Yeah, and I don't think that character concerns are going to be that big of a deal for Mike Borgonzi, and as long as the character stuff comes back not criminal, I think we're okay. But the difference between Bond and Burden, and obviously in this comparison, is the word police. You don't hear that with the Luther Burden the third talk. So that's a big rock left to kick over.
Yeah, two different avenues I feel like you can take with the character concerned wide receivers, which we
Yeah,
see more and more often now. Like I like how that came out, and then the Tyreek Hill news dropped like
it's
close
crazy.
to after that, and I was like, we're just getting a lot of parallels here. So
Yeah,
those are the two guys that I think those were the biggest. Those are the biggest things for wide receivers, right? Because I do think that they want to take a wide receiver within the top 100. Just like friend of the show Zach Lyons over at Cover Two has, pointed out, they cannot wait on wide receiver post
yeah.
round 100 unless a guy like Bond were to fall, like drop down
Well,
boards.
this was kind of the thing that we had been waiting to drop for quite some time, because the rumors on Bond have been out there like this guy's going to be completely off some teams' boards, and we're like, well, we don't really know why. Like, is it just diva stuff? And the whispers were, no, 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 it's much worse than you think. It's much worse than you think. And then this news drops, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty bad. So
Yeah.
some people will probably have him off their board altogether.
Yeah, and so how far you can take him? I think when Jack Ripper says they have to take a wide receiver, they need almost two. I think I've been converted to that idea.
Yeah.
But Coach Wills asked, so are we all on the same page? Second pick should be a wide receiver. I still don't think that that's set in stone, that it has to be a wide receiver.
Yeah.
I think, much like Jack Ripper says, in the top 100, if you have three picks, whether via trade up, which we'll talk about some other trade up scenarios that have been floated around once again earlier this week, or a trade down, bottom line, they're going to take Cam. They need you have to get a wide receiver and an edge within the top 100 or with 103.
Yeah.
Like, if those three hit, like he says, I think that's a major win. That is another piece of the puzzle you have pretty set in stone there with three top 100 guys, if you're able to do that. Now, I do think that whether it is second or third, it really just depends on their own boards, because the wide receivers are going to go on day two, like we talked about on Tuesday. This is a class that we're going to get a lot of shocks and surprises on day two, because I think everybody has their different preferences on these players, because once again, unlike last year, it's not as deep. It's a lot of more specialty type players, right? Like I do think that they could go in any which order. And that's where I think it's hard to say definitively that their second pick is wide receiver, because I just don't know how other teams are going to value these wide receivers, right? And I think that's they have to take one though in the top 100. Like, that is a non-negotiable. I think if they don't take a wide receiver in the top 100, it's, I wouldn't say a failure, but it's not a good look in my opinion.
Yeah. So I think the board and the way the dominoes fall in the draft are going to dictate that. In theory, yes, I agree. They need 2 wide receivers out of this class. They need an edge rusher that can make a difference. They need a thoroughbred out there, and they obviously need the quarterback as well. But I don't want to see this team reaching for guys that aren't good value either. So when I say they need 2 wide receivers, I mean, they need a speed guy. They need somebody that's just going to add some juice regardless of where he plays. You just get a playmaker. Just get a playmaking wide receiver. You need someone opposite Calvin Ridley. But then I also think that second wide receiver is going to be a slot. I think it's going to be the heir apparent to Tyler Boyd, and they want a guy that can play inside as well. And I think there's a crop of those guys. There's a ton of them in this class, but I think there's a crop of guys on day 3 that are going to be serviceable slots in the NFL that you can pick from. And so it kind of, to me, it allows them to just go best player available between the 2 positions at 35. So if you have a higher rated edge there, go edge. You have a higher rated wide receiver there, go receiver.
And I think they've probably met or are going to meet with a lot more edge guys, and maybe that's the news we start seeing. That's where we start seeing some of this news come out, that we see a more defensive heavy end to the draft, the pre-draft cycle, right? We have 19 out of 30 visits confirmed, and it's been a lot of offensive guys, right?
Yeah.
Between the offensive guards, offensive tackles, tight ends, running backs, wide receivers, quarterback, of course. Like we've seen a couple of, edges, Femi Oladejo, which 35 would be blasphemous, I think. I like Femi, but like that would be too high. But then we've seen a lot of defensive tackles as well, which I think gets me to my next question. And this is, we'll end on this because we'll talk about who could be on the move and talk about some of those top 30 visits that we've also seen. But like, who else, in just going 10,000 foot view, like who could potentially be a surprise move on the draft night, specifically night 2 or right before night 2, right? Will Levis is one still. Obviously there were people who, Josiah Anderson had a report that said Will Levis is potentially being shopped. I know that was shot down at the owners' meetings. I'm not out of the realm of possibility that Will Levis could be on the move. I think it makes sense for him to be on the move, right? Like if it is Cam and there's still a possibility that you can get a borderline top 100 pick for him, I think it's worth it, in my opinion. I think I've said that all along. I mean, hell, Kenny Pickett is still being bought for picks, right? Like, I think if Kenny Pickett in the past 2 years has been traded for like a third and like 2/5, I think you should be able to get a late third for a guy like Will Levis. Now, could he go to a team like the Rams, or the Steelers pass on a quarterback because they're going with Aaron Rodgers? Could they be in the mix there? Like
New Orleans
as well with the Derek Carr news, because where we saw it early, just about 20 minutes ago, the Saints suddenly have a major quarterback question per Ian Rappaport. Starter Derek Carr is now dealing with a shoulder injury that threatens his availability for this season, sources say. Glad we dodged that bullet, even though I really like the idea of him. Levis in a 5th for a 4th, I think, is a gross overpay for that 4th, personally. Like, I think you can get Levis for a 4th straight up. I do think there's possibility that he is on the move. Who else could be on the move, though? I'm going to throw out 2 names, which I know we had some people on Tuesday's show get up in arms, but I do think there's a world where someone like Roger McCreary or even Jeff Simmons could be on the move. Yeah. Now, I know with Roger McCreary, I think more likely than Jeff Simmons, he's on the last year of his deal, I believe. He does not fit into that mold of Chad Brinker's system, right? Like the arms and the height simply just do not match with what the Chad Brinker draft strategy is, right? Like there is a way that I could see Roger McCreary be moved for a late top 100 pick, potentially. I don't think it happens, but I think there's a world where you trade McCreary in a 4th for a 3rd.
Yeah, and I think you talk about the arm length threshold, which is a pretty important metric for defensive backs. And as much as I love Roger, I'm a big fan of Roger McCreary. I have been since he was drafted. Phone booth quickness, tough player. Listen, I've been a fan, but he doesn't meet a critical threshold for this regime. And so you pair that with the fact that he's on the last year of his deal. If he doesn't really meet their thresholds, they're probably going to move on from him anyway. So then the thinking becomes, well, if we can get something for him now instead of just letting him walk after the season for nothing, you take the opportunity to do that. There's a clue that there could be a sort of contingency plan at the slot out there because of the guys that they've had visits with so far. Upton Stout out of Western Kentucky, Robert Longerbeam out of Rutgers, an outside capable guy that is probably going to play inside because of his frame at the NFL. And then Quincy Riley out of Louisville too, who has struggles of his own that a lot of people think he's probably going to shift inside to the slot. Zach brought up something great on Football and Other F Words last night that Blaine mentioned on Cover 2. They may feel like they want to get one of these outside guys in the draft where there's a Darian Porter, there's a Trey Amos, guys of that ilk, and then move Jarvis Brownlee inside to the slot as a contingency plan. A lot of this kind of circles back to I don't know if they are as sold long-term on Roger McCreary as the fans are. And listen, rightfully so. Like, McCreary's played a lot of good ball for this franchise. I just don't know that he fits the mold of what they want in their slot corners.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, Coach Wills has said the Hot Read podcast hates short arms. I'm here to tell you that Chad Brinker and the rest of this squad hates short arms. Like, no, that, I'm relaying this information. Like,
it's fair on my count. I'm anti short arms.
Yeah,
except for Roger McCreary. I love Roger McCreary. I don't know why I'm waving my cigar around.
I do think like that's not out of the possibility, right? Like that they're sniffing around some of these these cornerbacks because, like the old saying from James Foster goes, you always can do good by adding a corner because
you just keep them coming.
You need the depth at that position. Considering who they let go this offseason, I don't think it's a bad pick by any stretch of the imagination. Like, there are some guys that I think could shock some people if they were to go top 100 to this team. But I think I see the vision there as well. And so that's one. Now, the other one that I think is a little bit more interesting, could Jeffrey Simmons still be on the move, right? Like,
yeah,
I understand that Jeffrey Simmons has been the heart and soul. It's a little divisive, but he has been the heart and soul for fans and this team in the locker room for better, for worse. He falls into that same category of what Harold Landry did, in which maybe the play hasn't fallen off, but we've drafted you, we developed you, and we retained you. There's not much else to go on there. And I know friend of the show, Zach Lyons, has said there are potential rumblings that things are not all happy-go-lucky at Tennessee Titans headquarters. And so could Jeffrey Simmons potentially be on the move? I think it's reasonable to assume that you can get a top 100 pick for someone like Jeffrey Simmons. And when you look at the guys that they are keeping tabs on with their top 30 visits, TJ Sanders, now Omar Norman Lott from Tennessee. I think I'm missing a couple other ones. Cameron Jackson from Florida. Like, I'm not saying it's out of the possibility. Maybe this show isn't the biggest questions, but maybe the biggest oddities that we could see come out of this draft, the biggest surprises that could come out of this draft. Like, there are reason to believe that they could be sniffing around these defensive tackle markets in the NFL draft because they're looking for a replacement.
Yeah, and if you remember back during the season, the rumor mill was turning that there was significant interest in Simmons at the trade deadline. Now, you know, I again, same thing with Roger McCreary. Jeffrey Simmons has played a lot of really good football for this franchise. He is at a stage in his career where if he came out in a press conference and said, I want to go play for a contender because I've played for this organization for what, 6 seasons at this point and haven't gotten anywhere, like I would understand that. Personally, I wouldn't hold that against him, because if you look at where the Titans are at right now, we're a long way from competing here, folks. Like, this is not going to be a Super Bowl contender in 2025, maybe not even in 2026. So if there is an opportunity to blow this thing up, to acquire as many picks as possible, then I don't know that there are too many people on the roster that I would say are safe. And Jeffrey Simmons is probably your best bit of leverage when trying to acquire more picks. He's probably your best asset because it was the first overall pick, but from what we know now, it's probably going to be Cam Ward. The Titans are probably not going to move off of that unless they're offered the kingdom from somebody. So you look down the list, Jeffrey Simmons still has incredible value. I'm talking like multiple day 2 picks if you find the right suitor, assuming he can stay healthy. Yeah, Mike Vrabel. So I just don't think it's very prudent team building at this stage of the rebuild to take any option off the table.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think that Eddie brings up the same question I was going to bring up. Does that bring into question, say, if they were to trade a guy like Jeffrey Simmons and Walter Nolan is there at 35?
Yeah.
How do we feel about that?
Well, I'm not the biggest Walter Nolan fan. Another guy that has character concerns. I think he's smaller, shiftier, a little more slippery, probably more of your, like, I'm surprised people haven't called him this year's Aaron Donald, like the undersized 3-tech that just gets back there and wreaks havoc. Really, really unpolished kind of guy. But I don't know. You might have to talk me into Walter Nolan at 35.
It would be very interesting to see them go with a top two drafts in a row. I'm sure that would be very interesting. But like, I think if you do, like, yeah, Nolan Burden, build #Team Toxic in the aggregate. We're always finding ways to reintroduce Team Toxic. But
that's right.
I think the bottom line there, right, is that there is ways for this team to get other picks besides trading down, like, or trading up. Like, there are assets on this team that I think teams, we have seen them start to lay the groundwork for possibilities there. And I thought they were important to bring up because I don't want to leave any stone unturned in this draft cycle with the Tennessee Titans, because I really do think that they could go any which way or any direction, because this team just needs good players in general. And like, at this point, like, if you can get a bona fide stud starter at any position, I think you'd be good to do it, which then leads us to what we're going to do here last, which is talk about some of these defensive tackles in the draft that I think are interesting Titans targets, either on day 3 or the guys that they have the guys they have kept tabs on with visits. But before we do that, have to thank our sponsor, M.L.Rose Craft Beer and Burgers. Over 25 beers on tap and some of the best food this weekend. If you're going to watch the Masters, watch some highlights, watch some baseball, whatever you like to do, enjoy a meal out with friends and family, have to get out to M.L.Rose because they have options for everyone, including their craft burgers, which are also excellent, including the Stoney Keeley burger this month. I mean, thick boy burger with fried pickles, ranch, pepper jack cheese. It looks amazing. I'm going to have to try it this weekend. I cannot wait any longer. 7 locations, like I said: Capitol View, Franklin, Gallatin, Melrose, 8th Avenue, Mount Juliet, Sylvan Park, and a 8th location coming to East Nashville near Inglewood. Thank you to them for sponsoring the show and potentially having some exciting announcements to finalize dates for a M.L.Rose show coming very soon. Also, thank you to Sinkers Beverages for sponsoring the show. 4-time Best of Nashville Liquor Store of the Year, for good reason. They simply have the best selection of beer, wine, and spirits in the Nashville area. And of course, they are hosting our draft party this year on Thursday and Saturday. Reminder, if you're watching and want to join in on the festivities, where all proceeds go to the Our Kids Foundation, all you can eat from Shotgun Willie's, all you can drink provided by Sinkers. Come out, talk ball with us, as well as on Saturday, where we will be having the closed doors, behind the scenes, off the record, whatever you want to call it, podcast Q&A about the entire Titans draft cycle. Got to get out to Sinkers Beverages headquarters and buy tickets below. They're going fast, and there is limited space available. So we'll be pushing this over the next couple of days until those spots run out. Links can be found in the description below. Okay, Stoney, as we wrap up today, I do think it's important to hit most positions in the draft because, once again, they're not the flashiest, they're not the sexiest, but there is reason to believe that the Titans could be interested in some of these guys. And I think when you talk about targets for the Titans, I think you start with those ones that they've been sniffing around on day two, right? The TJ Sanders, the Omar Norman Lotts of the world. Those are guys that they've looked at as potential fits here. And I think we'll start with TJ Sanders because was one of the biggest contributors on a South Carolina line last year that was one of the top defensive units in the league. And it mostly went through a guy like Sanders. He is a game wrecker. He, has the size that you were looking for in a prototypical defensive tackle. 6'3", maybe on the little bit of a lighter side of a 305, but he plays a lot heavier. He looks like he plays a lot heavier than like 305 because of his ability to combine that speed with the less weight into his power. One of my favorite guys in this entire class, in my opinion. And that's not just because I'm a South Carolina fan. Like I like watching South Carolina, but it's more so because I get to watch TJ Sanders.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of TJ Sanders myself. I think you look at him, experience, checks a lot of the boxes that you look for in a defensive lineman. Really thick core. He does look a little thin in the limbs, plays a little too high at times, and that top-heavy demeanor can be used against him when linemen kind of control the shoulders and stall his rush a little bit. But, man, he does a lot of good things. Burst off the line, a mean bull rush. He puts every bit of his frame into the bull rush. Good aim and feel for knifing through the A-gap between the center and the guard. His patience, one of his more underrated traits. I felt like several times he seemed to kind of hold the point firmly with a good sense of when to swing the shoulders to the side, toss the guy out the club, shed the block, get in the gap, or pursue the running back. The hands are good. The cross swipe, he jars offensive linemen. He's a dude mover out there that can open up a lane to the quarterback, can swim over the center to create quarterback pressure, fires his hands up and pulls them back down on the push-pull. Strong club to knock down hands. He may be kind of average in the traits department, but he is a productive combo of power and rush potential.
Yeah, that power plus the production at being undersized, at least in the weight division, the weight class, is what makes him so interesting. And a guy that, we've talked about, there are potential for contingency plans for older players all over this roster. And by no means, if the Titans were to surprise us and instead of going with a wide receiver and an edge in the first with the first two picks on day two, if they were to trade down or whatever, right? If they were to take a guy like TJ Sanders in the third, like that is still a home run pick to me, because the way that he would be potentially able to disrupt with Tavondre Sweat in the middle, create yet a rotation type situation there with Sebastian Joseph Day, keep Jeffrey Simmons a little bit, more clean, or, maybe not put as much tread on the tires. Sure. And he's young, 21 years old, will be 22 when the season starts. Like, he's a guy that I absolutely love. I do also love the way you described him. That's a new one. Throw him out of the club type strength, I believe is what you said. That is a great way to describe it.
It's the timing of it, man, because you see him fire his hands into an offensive lineman, but his eyes are kind of in the backfield reading the play, and he's just, it's like the cartoon where you've got your hand out and the cartoon's swinging at you and they just can't hit you. It's kind of like that, where he's just holding the offensive lineman as the guy's fighting against him. And once he realizes, okay, this is a run, he will just take those shoulders and just throw the guy to the side and get in after the play. It's really awesome stuff. He's got some great tape.
Yeah, I love TJ Sanders. I also really do like Omar Norman Lott out of Tennessee. Now, this is a guy, of course, he's talking about how I don't really care about him. This is the only Vol I care about right here. Omar Norman Lott, especially in this class, undersized, but once again, another guy, he does make up for it in his in other ways outside of that, right? He's 6'1", 303, but still super productive at Tennessee. And I know he was around some really impressive edge rushers. However, I think those abilities and traits, especially if you were to consider a guy there in the third, early fourth, like an Omar Norman Lott, to be a rotational guy with Tavondre Sweat, with Jeffrey Simmons, with Sebastian Joseph Day, like he can add maybe a different sort of way to get to the quarterback that isn't the big, gigantic bull rusher of a Tavondre Sweat or a Jeffrey Simmons that this team could do well to add.
Yeah, clearly undersized guy. I think it shows up in power situations, but he is a versatile rotational piece, can line up across the formation, whatever you need him to do, attack the guard, attack the center, line up out wide and run speed to power on a tackle. He can do a little bit of everything. Great burst off the line, active hands, raw force with an open lane at the quarterback. He's a torpedo guy that wins more with the low man wins kind of leverage than outright power. Regularly establishes 3 points of contact on the guard. And for those that don't know, that is 2 hands and his freaking face in the chest of an offensive lineman. The guy has some burst. He's got some pass rush potential. He's got some moves. This is a guy that's probably going to be used more interior, over the guard, over the center, where he's kind of the size mismatch is not as dire, is not as great. But I think it's a guy that can be a disruptive force at the next level for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like there's a reality where they take him in the third and designate him as like their top pass rushing guy they use in this draft.
Sure.
Like I do think he has the versatility. I don't think he has the versatility to play all 3 downs as an edge rusher, but like he does bring that Danico Autry-esque versatility that this team was missing last year. You talk about a guy who is a heat-seeking missile. Like his only objective is to really rush after the quarterback, which I think can be used pretty effectively this year in a Denard Wilson defense that wants to rotate guys in this upcoming season. 18.8% pass rush win rate, led everyone in FBS play last year on the defensive line. Like this guy is absolutely a bullet when he gets off the line of scrimmage with his explosiveness. And I do think that there is a reality, right, where we are talking about on day 2, say they trade back, take a guy like or maybe stick and pick with a Luther Burden at 35. There's a opportunity for them to trade up for an Omar Norman Lott in the mid 90s. Of course, on the consensus board, he is 81. TJ Sanders is 60. Like, or if they trade back into the mid 40s, we could be looking at the potential where, to wrap today's show up, like he is a guy that you could see them take Isaiah Bond in the mid 40s. And then with their 3rd round pick, take a guy like Omar Norman Lott. And maybe it's not the flashiest haul, but I think there is potential there for them to be impact players day 1 for the Titans in 2025.
Things are wide open for this Titans franchise. There are multiple ways to build a team. I won't be surprised if any of that happens, JT, and I won't be surprised if Donovan Jackson is the pick at 35 too. I'm with you, Team Ramrod. Drop it in the comments. Let's go.
Sorry. Fine. One more thing. I can't get behind an offensive guard or offensive tackle at 35. Like, where are they going to play? Where are they going to that is one where I don't see the value in taking a guy like that for him to be sitting behind someone like Dan Moore or Kevin Zeitler for a majority of the season. And I know injuries can happen, and maybe you'd be very grateful to have that guy come mid-season. But when we're talking about their need for impact starters to be on the field, like now, I don't see what a Donovan Jackson does for you.
You gotta build a team with the best players. And if there's patience here, if this is going to be a multi-year rebuild, you know what? Don't go to that next tier of wide receivers or that next tier of edge rushers and reach for a guy when you've got a top 10 player in this class available at 35.
Yeah, I mean, the talent is not there. He's been one of the biggest risers over the past couple of weeks. Like,
I love Donovan Jackson.
I'm not disagreeing with you. But when you could do that, or find a developmental guy like Zedine says here, a Miles Frazier, a Jalen Rivers in the fourth, and still get a starter at the edge position, at wide receiver, at tight end, at corner, like, I don't know, man.
What do you think the reaction is going to be, JT, if the Titans go with Donovan Jackson at 35? What do you think Titans Twitter is going to do that night?
Listen, like, a certain person over at 102.5 The Game is going to be livid at that. Even though, like, actually, I don't know, because I do think they like Donovan Jackson. Like, I just won't get it, because I get, like, in a year or two, he probably makes this line better. But, like, that is not, like, you're spending a top 35 pick on someone who is projecting not to be starting for you next season. Like, that,
I mean,
that
he
to
might
me is
be.
not, you're going to have, well, like, I mean,
you never know.
You're signing Kevin Zeitler as a backup then? Is that the plan?
What if Dan Moore is not the tackle that they think he is? What if he's more of the tackle that everybody that cites all the sacks allowed? What if he's that?
And they spent $50 million guaranteed on him over the next 2 years for him to sit the bench?
They bite the bullet, and he's their new sixth man, and Donovan Jackson's out there starting left tackle for the next 10 years.
I do like the cope. It is good. I do enjoy it. However, I cannot get on board with that. I'm staying as far away as possible.
I don't think people will be happy with that. I'll be the one person in Nashville that's doing cartwheels if they draft Donovan Jackson.
And we'll love to see that on our day 2 live stream. And we can discuss that all night long. But I think that is going to do it for our show today. Thank you all for joining us today, talking about some wild scenarios that potentially could happen in the draft, because once again, I don't think that this draft is necessarily set in stone with the wide receiver edge combo. Like, I think there's definitely other ways that it could happen. We will be back next week with some more topics. We're getting very, very close to the draft, right? There's only so much we can talk about. So maybe we'll start off next week with some of our hottest takes in a take purge-esque type thing.
There we go.
Move over to looking at our final mock drafts before we get our final predictions out. And then we're so close to the draft. Thank you to M.L.Rose and Sinkers Beverages for sponsoring the show. As always, Stoney, you got one more thing? Or are we getting out of here on a Friday?
We're going to get out of here quickly. I'm going to go smoke this cigar that I've been waving around on camera because I don't have my pen handy, and I like having something in my hand on these.
I love it. So that's going to do it. Thank you guys all for watching. And until Tuesday, this has been the Hot Read Podcast. We will talk to you then. Have a good weekend, everybody.